Have you ever had the feeling that someone is manipulating you? Knowing how to deal with manipulation and manipulative people can be a real challenge, especially if it's someone you're close to. So in this video, I'm sharing 5 ways to deal with manipulative people that actually work. So let's talk about manipulation. Hi, I'm Jeremy Godwin, and I talk about looking after your mental health with simple advice based on quality research and personal experience from someone who actually understands what it's like to go through mental health challenges. So I'm sure I'm not the only one who has been on the receiving end of manipulation in the past, and often it can happen in both our personal and our professional lives without us even realizing it. If you've ever found yourself being manipulated, it can cause all sorts of issues, like having trouble trusting people and even potentially doubting yourself and your abilities. Since it's something that can sometimes unfortunately happen in our closest relationships, like with our partner, family, or friends, it's worthwhile having a chat about what to do if you suspect that you're being manipulated. Now, manipulation can be described as when someone does or says something in order to try and change the behavior or the perception of another person or a group of people. And when you think about it on a personal level, manipulation can often happen in our individual relationships. And look, it's not always negative. If you think about a time where someone has had a positive influence on you, that's actually a form of manipulation, but it's where it's being used for helpful means and it's not doing any harm. When it does become an issue is when someone is trying to get you to do something that you don't want to do, or that isn't in your best interest. That's where manipulation becomes a force for negativity, and it can have a damaging effect on your mental health. Think of it this way. Influencing involves having positive intentions towards the other person, whereas manipulating involves negative intentions. So let's talk about how to deal with manipulation, starting with reflect and listen to your instincts. Reflection is about sitting and looking at things in a non-judgmental and more objective manner than you might if you just react to the emotions that you might be feeling. Emotions are usually a sign that something needs our attention, but if you just react to them without taking the time to consider where they're coming from or why they're happening, then you can end up making things way more difficult for yourself. The thing about reflection is that it makes you sit down and look at your feelings and then begin the process of digging into them layer by layer in order to better understand what sits deep down in your core so that you can address that. It's about treating the root cause rather than just the symptom. So if you feel like you're being manipulated, dig into that feeling and find out what's going on and what issues might be lurking under the surface for you. And do listen to what your gut is telling you. Just balance your feelings with logical thought. Okay, next, confront the person in a calm and objective way. So this isn't about having a screaming fit or creating a drama. I mean, you're not on The Real Housewives. Instead, it's about having a rational conversation. So, explain what it is that you've noticed is happening. For example, I feel like I often need to justify my decisions to you. So then it's up to you whether or not you want to say how the behavior or action has made you feel. And of course, lots of counselors and therapists will often tend to encourage you to speak in that kind of way because it's about getting you to take back your control and your power by focusing on how things make you feel. However, in the case of manipulative people, you might find that making a statement saying, "Oh, I feel this way," or whatever, could be used against you at a later date. So my suggestion is this. By all means, share your feelings the first time that you address the issue, but be aware that if you have to address it more than once, then the time for explaining how you feel is over, because by that point, that person knows exactly what they're doing. Okay, next, set boundaries and stick to them. So the goal here is to state what you will and will not accept from them, and then stick to it. And that includes setting boundaries for yourself as well, which might be things like committing to just not engaging with the person the next time they try to manipulate you, or deciding that you will call the behavior out when it is happening and stop it in its tracks. Now, I tend to work on a 3 strikes and you're out approach to boundaries, but for bigger issues, I'm very assertive in the sense of saying this is not acceptable, and then if it happens again, then there are consequences, such as changing the nature of my relationship with that person. Maybe that's just because as I've gotten older, my tolerance for crap has gone out the window, but you need to decide what works best for you. And provided that your intentions are to do no harm, be kind, and give more than you take, then I think you're on the right track. And then, so if the manipulative behavior continues, walk away. You know, we shouldn't just stop talking to someone without at least trying to resolve our issues, because ghosting is unkind. And if there are issues, then we should try to work them out like rational and compassionate adults. But sometimes the other person just does not want to cooperate. And if that's the case, then you're wasting your time if you keep trying to sort things out over and over again. And you're also potentially putting yourself in a vulnerable and dangerous position. So cut the cord. There are far too many stories of people who have had their lives shattered by someone who manipulated them into substance abuse issues, or ruined their finances, or completely isolated them from family and friends. I know it can be tough to hear this, but if someone is manipulating you into doing things that are not healthy, and they refuse to change their behavior, then you need to walk away. That can be really terrifying. And of course, every person's situation is unique. So my advice here is to always put your overall health and well-being first in all things. And if that means that you need to find support to get yourself out of a situation where you're being manipulated, then there are plenty of services that can help you, but do take that step. Okay, next, be self-aware and mindful of your own intentions. If your intentions are good, so for example, if you're trying to help, but you also understand and accept that it's up to the other person whether or not they choose to take your help, then great. But if your intention is to get your own way or control the other person, then I think that deep down you have to know that isn't a fair and decent thing to do. And how you treat other people will have a direct effect on how they treat you. So choose to do no harm, be kind, and give more than you take. This is all about having greater self-awareness, which is vital because it helps you to be much more honest with yourself about what you might need to focus on in order to be the best version of yourself possible. The choice is yours, as it is with all things related to your well-being. So, what choice will you make today? Let me know in the comments below. And I mentioned boundaries earlier in this episode, and I explored how to set healthy boundaries in this video. Watch it now for more simple tips, and while you're at it, subscribe to my channel for new videos every week. Plus, check out my weekly podcast, Let's Talk About Mental Health. It's linked in the description below. Thanks for joining me today, take care, and talk to you next time.